Not a lot of energy from Bridget.
I get kind of
You know,
excited about
we got sleepy Bridget. She's tremendous, and I'm honored to share this stage with her. So what I'm going to talk about is what we've learned from project. Oh, I'm still thinking with a camera. That's the most important thing.
Well, now it is because my Google Hangout filled.
Oh, look at
It's
that.
such a bummer. The hotspot.
I don't like that anyways. It'll connect in another 5 minutes. But what I'll talk about today is project outreach. And the first thing I say, you know, Mark and I both come from a communications background. And so, you know, when we look at a project, we're going to focus on the project level. When we look at a project, it's not just about social media. It's about all the tools in the toolbox. So what are the tools in the toolbox that you're bringing to the table? Social media is now one of them. Online influence, online impact, customer service is part of that because there's an audience out there. But that doesn't mean, you know, you don't do the tools like public meetings or email marketing or branding. You go door to door when you're going to impact someone, businesses in the downtown. You're going to hand out flyers. You're still going to do all of those traditional things. What this new tools do is open up another opportunity to engage with people who don't have time to go to a meeting, who really don't have time to read anything. I mean, readership levels now are just tremendously different than they were 10 years ago when I was in PR, and much different than 15 years ago when I was a journalist. It's so different now. When people read a newspaper, 80 to 90% will not turn to the next page to read the rest of it. Readership is different. People want things quicker and faster. Does that mean it replaces the old tools? No, it doesn't. But we have to look beyond what the traditional is. So look at all the tools in your toolbox. What fits your project? What tools are you going to bring to the table? Social media doesn't work for everything, and I've told some clients, no, it's not right. It's not the right thing. But neither do sometimes mailers. So you have to figure out what fits. And I always like to say, you know, look at the toolbox. Don't just focus on social media. And some have said, let's do Twitter, when they don't even have an email list of people to contact. You have to use all in combination. So as we look at projects in general that Parsons Brinckerhoff works on, is 9 projects over the last 4 years, utilizing about 20 social media platforms. And we've learned a lot from that. It ends up being about 20,000 followers altogether. So there's a huge volume of information.
Well, it's not all the way in on that.
Which one? Down here maybe?
No, the one in the iPad.
Oh, okay.
It's not all the way.
Seems to be fighting with me.
It's a kind of a shaky connection.
Yeah, I know. That's all right. So our projects range from rail projects to projects in design to construction to project development, some environmental. There's a variety of things that we're looking at. 2 toll lanes in Los Angeles. And we've learned a good amount from those. What we've learned most is exactly what Bridget said, is connecting and engaging with people is the key.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
I gotta ask.
Yeah.
So you're putting 9 projects out there, you're trying to engage them, you're using it as a marketing tool to let them know what you do. Who is engaging back with you?
The public. I mean, just general, you know, the public. Now, some projects, and I'll talk a little bit about this, but the real opportunities, not only with the general public, but for instance, on some projects, for instance, we have a project in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the University of Michigan. We closed the road to the football stadium, the largest football stadium in America. That's a pretty big deal. What we found there was our best constituents, our best stakeholders were the local businesses, chambers of commerce, visitors bureaus. So depending on where it is, you can really engage with people that you wouldn't normally engage with, who can help spread your message. So sometimes it's businesses, sometimes it's chambers of commerce, sometimes it's organizations, and sometimes it's just customers. It really depends on what the project is.
So you did this to let them know that you closed the road's closed for traffic reasons, or just to update them on the project?
A combination. And I'll talk a little bit more as we move forward on how we share messages and what those messages constitute. So hold on to that thought because I won't forget it. But it's absolutely critical and it's a great question. What it boils down to is, in an internet minute, you can't see this here, but 2 million search queries on Google, 277,000 logins on Facebook, 6 million Facebook views, 20 million photo views on Flickr, 320 plus new Twitter accounts are created every minute on Twitter. So what I tell projects and clients is that there's a conversation going on out there with millions of people, that they're in this universe, and they're not ignoring your project. The thing is, they're talking about it. And so when you have a project, especially a high-profile project, do you know what the conversation is online? Because there is one. And invariably, when I look at a project first thing I do is search Twitter and search Facebook and a couple other tools that we use, and there's a huge conversation. And it's sometimes frightening. There is a conversation going on. There's a ready-made audience. There is a ready-made audience if you do it right. So these are some comments. You really can't see them on this, but the projects that we manage, we know what the public's saying about us because we follow it and monitor it. Mary mentioned express lanes in LA. We have searches set up for a variety of different terms on Twitter and Facebook to make sure we're capturing everything. So if they don't mention us specifically, they may mention an aspect of our program. We know what they're saying about it. We can connect with them, and it goes to what Bridget said. We can connect with them, share something that they said, respond back to them, and most of the time they're shocked. Like, oh my God, you're actually paying attention to me, little old me. Wow, that's powerful. But some of the comments, we get a variety of comments, but this is a couple of my own. I don't know if I can say this right now, but I'm going to. I'm screwed without you guys giving me traffic updates. These are honest comments from regular people, right? If you're impacting them, you're impacting their life daily. This is one of my favorite ones. I really appreciate that you're taking the time to reply. This is the first for a government Twitter account, for me anyway. When an agency gets that kind of comment from a member of the public, that is a powerful thing. I don't even know if you can put a measurement on it. Wow, you speak tweet in Spanish too, and we do. You're sharing good information, but there's also negative. End this project now. I'm so not happy. Absolutely ludicrous. I'm so mad. But you know what? I tell people, who would you rather have them tell that to? Not the media, not your local elected officials or your legislators. You'd rather have them come to your Facebook page and Twitter page. The WCC folks who are managing that project right here in Orange County, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Know that. We want them to tell us so they don't go somewhere else and tell someone else. Legislator, media, then it comes back to us through a third party, and then you're really in trouble. Then you got to really defend yourself. Here you can respond to them. Nice picture of Bridget on your screensaver, by the way.
Thank you.
So, negative's okay. And it goes, again, Bridget made a great point. That's how you develop relationships. It's not going to
I would just unplug it and you...
That's what I think too.
Mary.
Mary's like, I'm tired of watching and trying to keep that in there. So, it's... The negative's good. Negative's part of it. If we get a phone call, and if you work on a project, you get a phone call, you're gonna talk to the person. You're not gonna ignore them. You're gonna address them. If they send an email, you're not gonna ignore them. You're gonna address them. Same thing on social media. You just address them honestly, accurately, sometimes directly. If they don't agree, you can agree not to disagree and move on. Typically, they're okay with that. And even the opponents come in individuals. You can handle them individually. The problem is when you get a group together. I think what social media allows you to do is address people individually. When you get them organized, petition, going to a local government meeting, then you're in trouble with your project. A couple of things kill a project. No money and bad public relations. Organized opposition. So I think these things help stem that tide, and we've seen that on projects. So I'll just talk about some of the projects. It's going to be hard to see these numbers, but
we can't see anything, so you just look at it.
Yeah. these numbers talk about, like, on the Huey P. Bridge Long project in New Orleans, we have 7,000 social media followers on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Those are strong numbers. That ends up being a potential monthly reach of about 3 million people. Okay, 3 million people are seeing information from our project. On the another program in Louisiana, it's called the Go Wider Widening Program. Includes design build project, a ramp metering system, a widening of a roadway. About 1,600 followers, and about 900,000 people every month are potentially reached by the social media channels. Ann Arbor Bridges project I mentioned about, we had a small engagement. It was a one-year project, about 750 people, but the engagement, the percentage of people that actually paid attention was 60 to 70%, which is unheard of. That means people really cared about it. And what was most fascinating about that, it was a university town, so we went into it expecting to get tons of university students, right? Oh, they're going to care about this because we're closing the road to the football stadium. Now, obviously, they're going to follow us. Students didn't care. They didn't care. They just followed the detour signs. But what we found is that 80% of our followers were 35 and older, and 60 to 70% were women. So who was following us were professors, business people, the downtown businesses, and other professionals. It wasn't the students that cared. That was the highest age group that we've ever had on a social media project. So, the point is that, it's not going to be the youth. It's not going to be the youth all the time. And typically on our project, it's not. It's professionals and serious people who want to know information. The LA Express Lanes project, we have about 2,500 now followers on social media. We've been managing that for about a year. Engagement increased about 300% in the first 2 months. And what we did on that project, which was unique and not very common in transportation, is we had a strategic plan to reach Spanish writing and bilingual audiences. So we put tools in place to actually reach those audiences, and it worked. Some of our best engagement is in Spanish. So we post in Spanish, we share information, we engage Spanish writing only social media sites, and it's been a tremendous success. We didn't really know what was going to happen when we took it on, but it has worked. I say the digital divide is slowly being broken down. There is a way to reach an audience that speaks different languages if you try. So there's some tools, rules that we followed after managing these projects now and understanding what it takes. First is to be nice and share. My mother-in-law was a very proper and mannerly woman, and had tea, and was very, very much about manners. And she had a great saying that said, "The world is much better off with mannerly people." And social media is the same thing. So we take that philosophy really and bring it to our project. It is really about good manners. If you're walking down the street, you're going to talk to people if they say hi to you. If you're in the coffee shop that you go to a couple times a week and someone asks you, do you like the weather, you're not just going to stick your head in the sand and not pay attention to it. You're going to listen. So one of the first rules is be visual with videos. These are all videos or visuals of some of our projects. This troll here, I don't know if you can see him, his name is Clarence, right here. His name is Clarence, and he showed up on the Ann Arbor Bridges project. We were tearing down one of the bridges, and a clever graphic designer in the community superimposed this image of this blue troll on the side of the old bridge. And it kind of became this running thing through the project where, when we tore it down, obviously he went away, and there was some discussion about that, and it was really fun. Everyone had a good time with it. And then at certain points of the project life cycle, he showed up again. He showed up in a pile of dirt. He showed up in a couple other areas where Clarence returned, and it became a real fun thing in the community where everyone kind of joined in that conversation. And so we would have videos, and we would have other things where Clarence would resonate again and come back, and it was really fun to be part of that. Visuals are really good on this project here. This one with the flag is atop the Huey P. Long Bridge project in New Orleans, 500 feet above the Mississippi River. As the last piece of structural steel put on the bridge. And these workers raised an American flag, and that thing must have got 15,000 likes. But those are the kind of images that resonate with people and connect. Real people doing real work is a big part of what we do in our projects and share images. So when people look at a project that impacts them every day traffic-wise, but they see pictures of their neighbors working, employment, jobs created, it changes their perception about the project that you're working on. It changes how they feel about it, how they think about it, how they talk about it, because they know it's not just steel and concrete and the big bad agency. It's real people doing the work. So a big one, obviously, be honest. If there's a problem, you really have to address it. One project, we had a traffic signal mistimed, and instead of becoming a 24-hour news story, it became a 3-hour news story because we knew it was mistimed, it caused traffic problems. Within an hour, our project team saw that it was a problem. We admitted on Facebook and Twitter that it was our problem. Sorry, we apologize. End of story. Next day there was one story buried on inside page 5 of the newspaper. I think maybe 5 years ago it would have been all over the next day on TV and everything else, but we resolved it quickly. People accept when you make mistakes, but you do have to apologize. So honesty, accuracy, be relevant. It's very important. Share information that is not just about your project, but tell them before it happens, especially if you're going to close a road, if you're going to close a ramp, there's some kind of impact. Don't wait for the press release to go out and the news media to tell you. You can be your own newsroom on these sources if done right. And again, this goes back to what I said, be nice and share. And that little smiley face, I've posted that probably a dozen times on our project sites. And people just love that thing. I don't know what it is about. Maybe it's a little creepy. One person was like, that's a little creepy. Like, you're kind of right. But it gets a reaction, and we'll post something like that and say, good morning, drive safe into work. There's a conversational tone that you can have with your with your audience. And you have to be direct with people. Like I said before, if people are negative and share misinformation, call them on it. The people that follow you will appreciate that, because they're following you for a reason. They want good information. And after all said and done, there's really some lessons we've learned from our projects. And again, transportation, transit, that kind of focus for social media projects across the country, different types of projects. Typically what we found is that ages 35 and older are following your project, 60 to 80% actually. That's a really high number. Marketers would die for that number. They'd love to be able to reach that number. That's a marketer's dream. So our projects, again, 35 and older are mostly who are following us. And not people who are going to follow Britney Spears and Ashton Kutcher. These are serious folks who will follow your project. Most of our projects, 60% of our followers are women. And women own social media, right, Bridget? They do. It's called the mom bloggers. They are the dominant force in social media, and they follow our projects. So those are powerful demographics right there. Again, it's not teenagers, it's serious folks. And what we found, where we have a good communications campaign combined with a good social media effort, is that our monthly website views are less than half of what they are on our social media sites. So our social media sites get much more traffic than our websites. And you can reach minority audiences on social media. As I mentioned before, it can be done if there's a strategic effort put into it, a thought process, and a strategy to reach that audience. But first you got to connect to them. You got to connect to their accounts, you got to like them, you got to follow them. The key thing is, and this goes back to the question here, is that this is a general rule of thumb, it changes a little bit, but for the most part, if you're pumping out project information constantly, people will tune out. I've seen some governments with Twitter feeds, traffic especially, where they say everything that starts on the Twitter feed is status update. Now, after a couple weeks, your brain powers down. It's over with, right? So, what our rule of thumb is: 25% of your post should be about your project. 25%. If you go more than that, people know you're marketing and pushing. They're just not going to pay attention. Have relevant content. Make sure it's timely. Make sure it's real news that people can use. But 25% of that should be about your project. The other 75% is about the community, about job creation. If you're in a construction project, we're about job creation, right? Share good news about the economy or bad news. Gas prices. We're transportation, so we can share gas price stories. There's a lot of great information out there in social media that you can share that isn't about your project. And then connect to those communities when there's a downtown festival. Share all that stuff. Connect with people, engage with them. If they have a good piece of information, it's a good news story, it's not political, not controversial, share it. It's going to go a long way. 25% is project information. It's like, what? We have to push our project. No, you're not pushing your project. You're being part of that community. And, I'm a professional PR guy. My friends, I don't lob with PR information every day about how great it is to do what I do. And, it's that engagement, it's that conversation that has to take place on your project as well. Social media is ideal for crisis communication. I used the example before about the mistimed signal. You can resolve something in a couple hours as opposed to, 2 days. If you're honest, if you try to deny that it wasn't your fault, you might be in trouble.
West County Connectors has a good story about that.
Next session, another session itself. And we've seen it on all of our projects at some point where crisis communication has been critical for it. Where it's been really fascinating is natural disasters. And in particular in Louisiana, where we have two major projects, the Huey P. Long Bridge project and the Go Wider program, which reach almost 10,000 people alone that are just followers, not to mention the people that it reaches. But, in Louisiana, there's a tendency for hurricanes and very bad tropical storms. So what we've done over those, I think, 3 or 4 events so far over the last 3 years is we have shared, when those instances occur, we become no longer about the project, and we become about those communities. So we share where to get local sandbags, what roads are closed, and emergency information like that. What happens is that our engagement increases quadruple than what it would normally during the project. Quadruple, isn't that amazing? You become relevant in their lives. And when you become relevant in their lives as a project, you've really accomplished something. So they didn't just look at us for project information. They're looking at us for important information from their local governments that we were sharing as well, because we have this huge network. So crisis communication can be really important and vital, and we've seen it work. We've done a lot of advertising through Facebook and Twitter. Very low cost, and you reach a lot of people. It does work, I can say that.
What's your return on investment for that?
Well, like if you look at, we've done it a couple times. The most recent one, we advertised a public meeting on Facebook. The great thing about Facebook and even Twitter now is you can target demographics. You can target a region, you can target a zip code, and you cap your amount. So you cap it at a certain amount. And, for instance, on the public meeting one, we capped it at $900, so we didn't go over the $1,000 threshold, which would have been a purchase order. So we didn't want to do that. Kept it at $900, and we reached 2 million people, and we had an extra 2,000 people look at the website that clicked on the notice itself. So that's a pretty good return on investment. And that's kind of what we're seeing in general as well. You can really target it, and if you do it right, you can utilize those dollars well. I rarely do print advertising anymore because it's so darn expensive, and you have no clue who you're reaching.
Right.
I'd rather put money in other ways. Social media works. This is an important lesson. Social media works when it's done the right way, when it's part of a transparent philosophy of engagement. And that's what we see time and time again. If it takes a week to respond to someone who's emailing you or calling you, social media is probably not the right tool for you. It really needs to be part of an effort to communicate with the public. If you're gonna, it has to be timely, and you can't wait 2 or 3 days between posts. You have to post constantly. There's no set rule for any project. There's a project that we work on that's in design. Our posts don't have to be frequent, but we have to do it every day. Maybe not 2 or 3 times a day, but at least every day. Because a design project's in design, right? There's not a lot happening the public can see. If it's in construction, you better be engaging 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day, sometimes 15 if it's really high. But it's not all about your project, it's about other stuff too. To become relevant and engaged, that's how you connect with people. So again, it has to be a philosophy of engagement overall. And when it's done right, what we found is that our most engaged audience is in social media, by far. When it's done right, most engaged audience is in social media. And I think that the last thing is it's darn fun. Bridget, you think it's darn fun?
I think it's awesome.
I think it's pretty darn fun. And it's great to share those results with the clients, with the agencies, because they're seeing that enthusiasm, that passion as well. And you know, I'm an advocate of this whole forum here. I think there are things that you hear. Well, what about this? What about that? Dip your toes into it. Take the steps. If you have a project that's high profile, see where it goes. But I think it's really important that we continue to push the envelope in this new world that we're in communications. And that's it.